Can we touch on something that was in the news? I'm not sure if you have additional information on this. I wasn't able to check with you beforehand. But this bridge collapse in Baltimore kind of has a really weird feeling to it. Do you have any additional information on that?
When I looked into it, it was definitely pre-planned, obviously. There was enough people there to film it as it happened. That was interesting.
Yeah.
As most of these pre-planned events are. They did it at a time when there was few people crossing the bridge. If they had done it during a busier time, it would have been a bigger problem. And I'm not to say that we're not sad to see that there are a few people that were not recovered and that kind of thing. But honestly, other than possibly trying to create fear, talking about security, people afraid to cross bridges now. There's also talk about don't fly during the solar eclipse, these types of things. It seems to me it's more about fear, instilling fear in people and things that would affect their average everyday life. As far as it having an impact, like where they could blame the Chinese or the Russians or somebody, if that was the case and that was the plan, then I don't see that happening anywhere at all. It was definitely deliberate. And the only thing I can see is the creation of fear of, people might have now of traveling by car, by plane, by, and trying to self-impose lockdown almost, like they don't want to travel over the, are they going to go across the San Francisco Bridge now? Or are they going to go, the Golden Gate Bridge or somewhere? There's people that are probably going to think twice out there. Due to the accident. So I'm assuming that's why they're pushing it. Otherwise, I don't see a logical, even from a Dr. Evil standpoint, as to why I would do something like that. If I was the evil person an evil person in this world, how would this fit into my plan? Mm-hmm. You have to look at it from an enemy standpoint always. And much like everything else they're doing right now, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I haven't seen any chatter or anything surrounding it that would lead me to believe it's part of a bigger plan at this moment in time.
Do we know what even happened? We know that they can gain control of ships and, do different things with them. Do we think that they just cut the power to it and the ship had no control? Have you heard anything on the back chatter on that?
I haven't heard anything about it having no control. I haven't heard anything about it being remote controlled. I would think at this point, I haven't even had a chance to look into the actual company that owned the ship. I don't think it was being done in that way. I think it was an orchestrated event for sure. Were the people on the ship aware that this was happening? Yeah, I'm sure of it.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, because in the media, they're saying that, they lost power or control that way. And I'm like, I don't know, unless, behind the scenes, they just cut the power to the ship and they couldn't control it at all or something like that. But yeah, and no one on the ship got hurt too, which I don't know what kind of impact. I would think that'd be a pretty big impact, but.
Well, it was predominantly a cargo ship, it was, so there's probably not a ton of crew on board anyway, and they're probably not at that end of the boat for the most part, or the ship for the most part, during its journey. But how you couldn't, in today's world, every flag would be flying. It would have started. It's kind of like, 18-wheeler trucks, large trucks, cars, even your car these days, if you have a newer vehicle, you know that when you're backing up, you've got the alarms that go off. If you get too close to something, you have the rear view thing in your car where you can see behind you, and it kind of draws these little lines and tells you how to back into your parking space or parallel park or whatever it is you're doing. I mean, there are even vehicles out there that will hit the brakes automatically, if you get too close to the car in front of you, as an example. Now, if they do that with cars, imagine what they do with large 18-wheeler trucks and with ships of this nature, with aircraft, and those types of things. So I'm not buying that. I'm sorry, I'm just not. Not only that, there are backup systems in place should something like that happen. There's storms, there's all kinds of things that ships experience at sea. There's always some kind of a backup generator, backup system. I don't buy it. I don't buy that at all.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't buy the fact that it wouldn't have created some kind of an alert, a shutdown, a slamming on it's not brakes in a ship, obviously, but, slamming on of something to prevent it from hitting an object. I just can't buy that. No. I mean, knowing all the things that we know, even about, regular vehicles that we drive every day, there's no way they wouldn't put on a multi-ton, machine, some kind of safety precaution.
Sure.
So I'm sorry, not buying that in any way. So I definitely staged. For what reason? I don't see any indicator of anything at this moment in time that would make sense to me. Okay. Other than creating fear and people not wanting to cross a bridge anywhere in the world. Due to the fact that could happen at any time. No way. Okay. It was pretty dark there, that at that time. Yeah. And it appears that, there's some pretty good lighting there in some of the videos that I saw, for it being so dark.
Yeah. Yeah. Just framed perfectly to catch the whole bridge collapse. It's amazing.
Yeah. Be interesting to see if any of our viewers live in that area, in the Maryland area, if they, can maybe, I don't know if they could get that close unless they've got a boat, but, what really happened there? I mean, I'm sure there was a bridge and it was damaged for sure. But does it make sense? Anybody who's an engineer, that can get near the situation, does that make sense to you? It simply doesn't make sense to me when I think about the amount of tons of water that flow there, how allegedly, slow the boat was going, the reinforcement needed for such a structure to exist in the first place with that much water coming at it. I mean, all of that comes into play with the materials and the stress tests on the materials before they even build a bridge like that. I'm sorry, all of this makes no sense to me. And
they also said that there were people working on the bridge at the time, repairing it. I thought that was awkward too. I know they like to do this stuff in the middle of the night or early in the morning, to not disrupt traffic. But yeah, there's just little things like that I'm like they were working, on the Twin Towers right before 9/11. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. So water, the force of water is tremendous. And that is accounted for when you build a bridge. The force of a ship going at that speed, it's not like it was going at, so many knots per hour or anything. I mean, it basically looked like from the videos, it glided gently into it. But what were the workers doing there? Did they compromise the integrity of the bridge so this would happen? Because I gotta say, it can't be the first ship to ever hit a bridge in part, and then at that speed to have the whole thing fall apart. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, the movie makers are very bad these days, and maybe this is an insurance claim, for the city or something like that, because people are running out of money, and that would bring in a decent amount of money. Speaking of decent amounts of money, the government is crying to their handlers that keep telling them just to wait until the eclipse, wait into this, and because they're not, same thing is happening in China too. China is also considering some type of event similar to this. I have heard that this morning, very early. They are also considering doing some kind of an insurance scam. When they're deep state, it's not a scam, but it's just one hand taking money from the other hand. But this is happening on every single level right now. So to see this as the only reason I could think that they would do something like this is for insurance purposes, some kind of claim. Hearing the same thing out of China, we all know China's kind of running U.S. politics right now. So but from behind the scenes, because they're the ones promising the money everywhere. I wouldn't doubt it. Maybe there's a correlation between those two things. Something I'll look into further. But I can definitely see them trying to take everything they can from insurance companies right now. Absolutely, 100%, even on a municipal level, even on a city level and a state level, because they are also going after their own. And what I mean by their own, they are talking about anyone that is worth more than $100 million. That is one criteria. And by going after, I'll explain how they're doing it. They're talking about rappers and stars and anybody that they are. I swear.
Well, no, I was talking with Mike earlier today. I'm like, what's going on with this Puff Daddy stuff? He's arrested. Whatever. They're accusing him of arms and drugs and trafficking, which we know they all do. But why are they eating their own right now? So you just said rappers. I'm like, yeah, oh, that's the Puff Daddy thing.
Yeah. Word on the street was, rappers, large company owners, also gangs, drug dealers, these types of people. Now, is this guy, remember several years ago, I think it was back in 2000 or 2001, Puff Daddy actually had a book that went into Barnes and Noble for a very short period of time about adrenochrome. It was an ebook. Do you not remember this?
No. When was this?
Oh gosh, I think it was the end of 2000.
Okay, that might have been right as I was waking up. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, it was an ebook. It really didn't say much. It was about, I think it was like $80 to $100 or something for this short little ebook that started talking about adrenochrome. It was a threat by him to the deep state, allegedly, to expose them all. He actually, in part, not in totality, but in part, really kind of made it mainstream. Yeah, it was all over the news with Barnes and Noble and those kinds of things. So there's no doubt that, he would be one of their targets to take out. And it's all about taking all their money. Really, it is at this point. And it's the same thing with all these Trump lawsuits. Not to say that he didn't do all those things, because I'm sure he did. But, when have you ever seen, even in the largest corporate cases in history, in history, have you ever seen someone have to pay $175 million in a bail bond?
No.
Does that even exist? Never. I've never, go, if you're watching this and you've seen somebody actually have to pay a bond of that amount, not a settlement in a lawsuit, not like, it was, I think it was Marlboro cigarettes in a class action lawsuit or something, not the settlement. I'm talking about just a bail bond.
Yeah.
They're trying to pull money out of everyone everywhere. And they set the criteria. Now, here in the United States, this is worldwide, by the way. This is not just a U.S. thing.
Mm-hmm.
And here in the United States, they're using the U.S. Marshal Services to do it because the U.S. Marshals, you have air marshals, and then you also have the land marshals. And several months back, I did report to you that anybody with a certain amount of money could get a U.S. Marshal's badge.
Mm-hmm.
And they were giving U.S. Marshal badges to foreigners, to CIA agents, allowing them to operate on U.S. soil and all of the things they're not supposed to do. So that is going full force right now. And they're issuing arrest warrants left and right with fictitious computer-generated images. This guy was here at this time, that kind of thing. It's also in part a little bit of a rebellion against the members of let's call them the anti-silent circle, the ones that run all the mafia organizations, drug dealers, and worldwide. Now, I find this kind of funny because, there are deals that are in place, and I know this for a fact, and have been for decades, between the U.S. Marshals, the Texas Rangers, the DEA here in the States, and everybody knows and everybody gets paid on all the drugs and everything else that comes across the border. That's a fact.
How does that work, Kim? You mean they get paid, so they get a cut of something?
Sure.
Okay.
Even our former Vice President Mike Pence got paid on human trafficking across the Mexican border in a deal with the Mexican president. Absolutely. And if you don't believe me, the accounts were sitting at Santander Bank and I found them. So there's everybody, this is all just a deep state act. It's, the same people that sit down at the dinner table at the end of the day in the movie that play the good cops and then the bad guys, they all hang out.
I know.
Like they're friends. They just do their part, make the movie, and then that's it.
Yeah.
But I don't understand. So this is another case of, okay, what is the purpose and how much money could they possibly get from these people in short order? And then if so, why is it public and in the news?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, could they seize their bank accounts? I mean, this is where the faulty, in the past, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but in the past, and most specifically in 2013. In 2013, there was a law passed here in the United States, because this is where it's kind of starting, and it's starting to trickle into other places in the world. In 2013, they passed a law that a bank can shut down your bank account for any reason if they consider you a risk, and they don't even have to tell you what that risk is. Now, during that time frame, they have up to 10 days to make sure that any amount of money you had on deposit is returned to you. So they can mail you a check, essentially, within 10 business days on the slow train, if they wanted to. Now, that being said, usually, from what I've seen in the past, from the way that economic assassinations and these types of things really work, is usually some guy comes knocking on your door, tells you that, you've been sleeping with so-and-so's wife, or so-and-so's, you're a female and you're sleeping with so-and-so's husband, or, you've been caught doing this red-handed. And nowadays you've got computer generated images and all kinds of stuff they can throw you into. You don't know what you see on the internet is real or not real. Now, blackmail takes place in the darkness. It's not something that atypically hits the news at all in any way. So it's usually all that stuff to get quick money, which is what they're looking for. All that stuff would be done behind the scenes. This is unusual, unless they're trying to claim that they're all of a sudden the white hats, but we all know that they are acting as the IRS on steroids right now, meaning they are the collectors of money. They make the mafia look cheap. I mean, 10% or whatever they charge in the specific areas, they're going for the gusto, and they're just taking all of their own people's, for lack of a better term, money. It's kind of funny.
Do you think they're trying to send a message? I mean, why put it in the media unless you were trying to warn people or say you're next or threaten them in some way?
Well, yeah, you can throw your token cannon fodder out there in the media. That you could do, which could then say, well, look, if you don't want, us to expose the fact that you're a pedophile or this or that, then yeah, maybe that's what they're doing, so that they could get more bang for their buck. Yeah. Really not sure at this point, because not a whole lot they do make sense. I just know that they need money. They're issuing thousands of arrest warrants for business owners and people. And, most of us don't have to worry. We're not worth more than $100 million, so nobody cares. They have come here, as I said, recently, as allegedly authorized by the U.S. Marshal Service. But, nobody knows me, nobody's, I mean, I don't have that kind of money at this moment in time. If I could transfer it, I'm sure they'd probably be back, when I can. So I'm sure they'd want theirs too. But as far as the deep state is concerned, yeah, they're scraping, and it's not even going to scratch the surface of the trillions of dollars in an operation that is required to continue or to, how do I say this, escalate an opportunity to have World War III. I mean, you're talking hundreds of billions of dollars a day, and they don't have it. And there's no way stealing money from a bunch of rappers is going to get you there. It's just not, or football players or whoever you think you're going to steal from.
You think they're trying to do it for more personal reasons? Like if you knew the ship was going down and you were just trying to take care of yourself?
You mean so that they could get personal money?
Yeah, well, yeah. Like if you knew that there was no way you were going to start World War III, you don't have that kind of money. I mean, I don't know. I'm just, because it doesn't really make sense, right? I'm just trying to think, well, could they personally benefit from this in some way?
Oh, I'm sure they're all taking a portion of it.
Okay.
I'm sure they've been promised a portion of everything that they can steal.
Yeah.
But they do make, and it's funny how some people actually fall for it because, as an example, a group of people, I think it was at the time, most recently it was the Black Nobility Silent Circle. They made a phone call to some people locally, and they asked them to get me to turn over the Alpha system to them. And this was like a week or so ago.
Right.
It wasn't that long ago. And get them a master key to the Alpha system. I think it was also the global headquarters that asked for something similar within a 24-hour period. And so the local people said, well, let's just say I could get her to turn over a master key. Why would I want to give it to you? I mean, like I said, these people around here are not the same as your average everyday operative. Like they are the elite of operatives, most of these guys. And in good ways and in bad ways, not saying everybody's, nobody's walking on water and, nobody's named Mother Teresa as far as I know, down the street. But I would say that, that makes sense to me. there's a whole lot of common sense going on around here and not a lot from the other side. Now, as far as U.S. Marshals are concerned, yes, the agency is not getting any funding. They are not making their typical percentages that they get from a lot of stuff. There's stuff that goes on across the border. Even black market drugs, probably are on the downslide because you kind of shut everything down, closed everybody's businesses, and those people aren't making enough money to support some serious habits, I guess. I don't know. I've never been in that world, but I'm sure that their income is down. Yeah. I know that the Silent Circle and the Anti-Silent Circle are still not putting out their own personal cash. I also know that whatever the Order of the Dragon has left, they're not putting out their personal cash. I know that a lot of the generals that had made significant amounts of money in the past are not putting out their personal cash. Nobody wants to do that. They're not going to put their own personal lives at risk. And by personal cash, some of these people have a decent amount of money. I mean, even if you look into the Tata brothers, for example, out of India, they took over Jaguar and a bunch of other, they own or owned, I should say, some odd 80% of the dark fiber. So the fiber optic cables that everything runs on in the world that is not being used. That's why it's called dark. Doesn't have necessarily dark energy running through it. Okay. So I'm seeing, are they next? Are they going to hit up, the Guptas? Are they going to start hitting up some of they're kind of technically, I guess you would say, if the families I'm talking about are the families that are telling the other people to go steal from the other people. So does this fall in line of the not putting out their own personal money? Possibly. But it's getting, I think they're just trying to collect enough money to hold them off until the 8th of April. Possibly. But you're not going to fund a government with that. I mean, there's not enough money they could take out in short order from every star in Hollywood. Remember, most of these people get paid by contract, and then the amounts are supposed to be paid out over time. So they take those contracts typically to, for example, hedge funds and banks, and then they get a leverage against those contracts so they can get cash out immediately, at a haircut or a discounted rate. So that's how sports stars do it. That's how a lot of people do it, in those industries. So I don't know where they're going with this, but I wish them all the best of luck in the world. That's how they get their mortgages on those houses, those big $20 million homes. It's all done the same way based on income and future income. So, agencies, maybe Sony or some of those, Universal Pictures, maybe. I don't know how much money those people have. Everybody's pretty much streaming everything online nowadays. The movie industry has become very similar to the Spotify situation of a decade ago, to where, if you're not on Netflix, if you're not on, one of these channels, then, Hulu or whatever it is, and nobody's going to, watch your movie. I mean, I haven't been to a movie probably in 3 years or something, but even the last time I went, it's usually pretty empty.
Yeah. Big theaters, small group of people.
Yeah. Well, and, it's mainly, our generation, Sonny, and on up, that would still go to a movie because it's a night out. It's something, you don't want to go by the time you get to this age. Do most of your friends go out on date night to go see movies, or?
What's that?
I know.
A date night, a friend night out. I don't know what that is. No.
Yeah.
But I do see more things that were just streamed online, them trying to bring things into the theaters, right?
Yeah.
So big concert kind of things. I think Taylor Swift had something like that going on. So I do see that more.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot more of a movement away from for those types of things. So, we'll see what happens, but I definitely know about the arrest warrants. I definitely know the list of people they're going after. I definitely know they're going to be disappointed when they see their bank accounts. But, define disappointment. I made $100,000 for threatening somebody. Is that good? Is that bad? We'll see what happens there. But yeah, the cosmetic people, large ones, L'Oreal, those types of people, those are people are on the list. So there are some pharmaceutical company people on the list. So we'll see. We'll see how well they do. Eating their own. I mean, these are people we probably won't miss much anyway. That's fine.
No, it kind of makes it easier for us in restoration if they all take each other out.
Well, it's not going to save them anyway. I mean, if they were trying to push it forward to a day where they thought they were going to get money. I mean, yesterday was another one of those days. Now it'll be another day. And you're going to run out of people to steal from before you hit a day that you'll actually get paid. But hey, can't stop them from doing crazy. I wonder how much of an insurance claim on a bridge like that is going to be. The insurance companies are wobbly at best. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I was just going to say that too. It's not like they're made of money. Like they could go under too with something like this.
Yep. Well, we're the only ones supporting them.
Yeah.
You must have car insurance to drive your car. Even if you don't have a loan on it, you must have insurance. Yep. Pretty much that's standard worldwide. The only caveat being if you can prove to the Department of Motor Vehicles that you have more than, I think it's $50,000, might be higher now because, the inflation and of course, COVID raised the price of everything somehow, some way. So, even my car insurance went up for no reason whatsoever. I don't know if yours did, Sunny, but it did. So the price of, if you can prove that you have X amount in the bank on deposit, in, for example, a savings account or something like that, then they will let you go without insurance because you have the ability and the financial capacity to pay for an accident, involving another person with personal injury and that type of thing. So whatever the minimum state requirement is in your state, at least here in the U.S., if you have that amount on deposit, you don't need car insurance. So,
which none
not
of
like
us
we
have.
all have that. If you do.
Yeah, very few of us
if you do.
I'm sure the deep state's fine, or at least they were until they quit getting paid for all their nefarious stuff. But
well, yeah, exactly. I'm sure they don't have car insurance, right?
Yeah, no, I doubt it. No, they'll just do the commercials to tell you to get car insurance.
Well, but because it's a requirement, we're all paying in some way, shape, or form, probably some kind of health insurance premium, whether it's Medicare supplemented health care or, state health care. They have national health care services for some of you that are watching in different countries other than this one that I'm sitting in right now. So but you're still paying. You pay for prescriptions. You pay for a few things here and there. And then, you're still paying for your car insurance and house insurance and homeowners insurance and insurance for this, insurance for that. So, they even have pet insurance. So, if they get any money from the insurance companies, it's going to because we're paying them. That's pretty much it. So these are things to think about as we go forward in restoration. What is insurance? Do we need insurance? I think we should have some kind of something, maybe a fund or something of some sort. But we'll see how that works. Okay, so pretty much in the world, as far as financial concerns, government concerns, this is what they're using the governments for now. I don't see much movement in the way of war. I have heard about a meeting that took place yesterday in not in the Pentagon, but with the Pentagon at a different base that was supposed to be quiet. They have agreed that at this moment in time, they cannot afford to engage in a war with China. Quite frankly, U.S. military people, China can't afford to get involved in a war with you either, unless somebody pays out trillions of dollars, which isn't going to happen. Mm-hmm. And they have decided to back away as much as possible from what they believe is their NATO agreement. So pulling back from Ukraine, pulling back from all Israel, pulling back from support, pulling back from foreign aid if any money actually went anywhere in the first place. This is what they've decided to do based on the fact that they can't afford it.
Yeah.
So even when the deep state calls them and tells them they need to move troops, they need to move these people, the answer is probably going to be, as soon as you pay us to do it, we'll go. Even from the bad guys there. Yeah. Are they going to adhere to that? I don't know, number one. Number two, people with the Pentagon, if you happen to be watching this right now, your NATO agreement expired a long time ago. And maybe you should give the archivist a call and ask them to provide you with a copy of your canceled agreement. The NATO organization technically is defunct. It does not exist. Just the fact that you're still talking to these people kind of tells me that you have no idea what's really going on. And nobody's telling you either. So maybe you should call your Langley 5 superiors and ask them what's really happening. Did it expire? Absolutely. Is anybody, any of the allied nations, so to speak, obligated to listen to a word that those people have to say out of Belgium? No, you're not. So do with that what you will. You want to continue to pay those people? Go right ahead. You're just continuing to pay your deep state partners for doing absolutely nothing for you or your country. So there's that. Okay. So in the world of progress now, we want to talk about...
It's like we took off one hat and we just put on another hat.
Yeah, we did. Well, we're going to, because, number one, I mean, I could go on all day about crazy little operations that they're running everywhere, but it just goes to show you that we absolutely are 100% pretty much on most of everything. Did I pay attention to back chatter at 2:00 in the morning about a ship crashing? I didn't actually get an alert for that. I did get an alert, though, for the fiasco that they were planning from underneath it's a very large facility. It goes all the way around, much past the center of Denver, Colorado. So now that must have been something fairly significant, because all my alarm bells rang at about 1:30, 1:45 this morning. So let's just say a bunch of deep state people in cooperation with the Mormons had a plan. It failed fairly quickly. A lot of people left the planet due to it, and that's the end of that.
Okay.
So Mormons are... I'm not blaming all Mormons. So if you're watching this and you're Mormon, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about, just like people talk about the Pope and the Vatican, I'm talking about your elder council. They are two peas in a pod. They should just marry right into one church at the top level, because it's the same people. It is the same people.
Yeah. And well, I mean, they kind of did. It's Satanism.
Yeah.
So they did. You just don't know.
That holy of holies room that you're not allowed to go in, guys? Yeah. You wouldn't want to go in there anyway. So trust me on that one. You don't know what goes on in there. But I've seen them coming up a lot, more than I have in the past, in an operational way. Like spraying chemtrails using their own private planes. That's weird, and a few other things that I've seen going on. So, they've become active lately, probably because they A, have money, and B, are willing to spend it.
Yeah.
Nobody else will spend their personal money. Maybe they just feel like they're they're, how do I say this? The people that attend the temple will continue to tithe, so therefore they don't have to worry about a loss of income, because as long as they're standing, they will continue to tithe because they believe in them so much.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's it. I know that they have heavily invested in a lot of mining activities throughout Utah and Colorado. Their business practices in some cases on that level of things is pretty shady. I've seen them steal technologies from people. I know they're doing it right now with some energy devices and some other things. I've seen them do that. Yeah, they're pretty shady. They actually, killed one of their own. In this particular story, they murdered one of their own in order to get to the technology, because he told them that he had already acquired the technology on behalf of the church. And that actually wasn't the case. So
I feel like these groups need to read their own religious texts and learn how to live life, because everything they preach is right out the window at the top. Right.
Well, it's not for them. It's for you.
Sure.
It's the same thing with government people. It's not for them. Those rules don't apply. The ones they enforce on us.
Mm-hmm.
Remember all those people flying around in planes with no masks on? You remember all that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, the rules are for them, and then there's rules for us.
Yeah.
And they're not the same by any means. So, okay. Can we move on now, Miss?
Yes, we can. Let's move on.
Okay, so we've been talking about the fact that we're going through this membrane right now.
Yeah.
And the fact that everything is kind of filling in. Well, as a part of this process, there are some old programs that are continuing to fall away. And the programs are not human programs. I'm not talking about deep state systems. I'm talking about stuff that was here for control of the masses, including them. Now, a lot of these things, and we talked about a little bit before, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about it now, on the ways that they controlled human behavior in order for our systems that we live in to work in their favor. We talked about how they amplified the sins into all of these crazy little nitpicky things,
Mm-hmm.
but there are other ways that they have controlled us mentally and have reinforced a small amount of feelings you might be having about situations that happen in a lot of people's lives. Not all, but for example, one of these programs was hate and anger. If you don't like a particular person or a particular thing that's going on, they could see the seed of anger, within you, and then they could amplify it so it becomes your whole life, and then it starts dictating your behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen these things happen before. That's that pent up, built up anger. And then anger, of course, creates things like cancer. It's repressed anger or hatred in some cases. Now, the opposite of that hate and anger program is called grace, gratitude, and compassion. So imagine a world where, because for a while here we are going to, we're like homegrown PTSD'd, society. I mean, for the most part, we've all been beaten, bruised and bumped. And what I mean by that is diseases and things like that don't naturally occur. So there might be some other things going on that when anger starts to arise, it will actually attract grace, gratitude, and compassion type energy.
Wow.
So the same thing goes with, I will say the death program. So we had an incarnation program and a lot of things as it relates to death. But the other thing that we see a lot is a fear. So you're watching TV on a, Monday night or whatever it is, you can't help but not see commercials about, if you have psoriasis, take this anti-psoriasis medication. It's the most wonderful thing in the world. May cause sudden death, may cause a heart attack, all of these types of things. Yeah. But that too is a program that amplifies. Same thing they do with movies. They'll put out a movie about cancer, or if you look at TikTok, you'll see 9,000 people dying of cancer or dying of this or dying of that. Death, in some cases, is a program. And remember, you're a manifester. Yeah. So what you're focusing your energy on and your time on, because then you start to think, oh, Mary started with a simple, rash on her pinky finger, and now, who knew that was second stage, whatever cancer, and then you start to think, well, I have a rash on my pinky finger. Does that mean I'm going to die too? Well, you start programming, you're almost manifesting this stuff within yourself. Yeah. So it's kind of a program. Mm-hmm. Obviously the opposite of that program would be living or life. Those thought processes are part of an age-old system, and all the deep state was meant to do was to dish it. Mm-hmm. They were the waiter for the people that really controlled this planet. They just were there to serve you, not serve you literally, but serve it up to you, I should say. Okay, other programs that we have out there, envy and greed. Now, these have been going on for a long, long time, but moreover, so since the mid-70s. We've got it in television programming. We have it in any kind of news. We have it all over the internet. We have it everywhere. Envy and greed. I wish I lived in that house. I drove that car. I had, I have the 2 versions ago iPhone. Oh my gosh, I'm not a person anymore. Whatever it is. And then you envy the people that do. You envy the people that, they do all these videos and everything for example, like Coachella and some of the big concerts. You watch all that stuff and you think, well, I wish I had that body. I wish I had this. I wish I had that, Mm-hmm. And a lot of that stuff's all staged and not real anyway. But the opposite of that is actually serenity and inner peace. You can be at peace with yourself with the way things are. And I'm not to say you don't strive for more always, but you be at peace with where you're at. You don't need to envy somebody. There's a difference between admiring a neighbor's new car or work ethic, or admiring someone else's beauty, or being handsome, or whatever that is. You can admire somebody's youth over, you're getting older or something like that. You can admire an older person's wisdom too, but that inner peace and serenity is what prevents you from having a jealous, envious feeling towards that other person or the thing, that you want. You're okay with the car that you drive. You're okay. You don't need to prove anything to anybody, and this is who you are when you have serenity and inner peace. Okay. Next programs that have been reversed out and switched out is sadness, depression, and knowledge. Okay. You hear somebody that might have the blues, funny that coordinates with the same color plane of existence that existed in between on the mental plane, in between the emotional and mental plane. No surprise there. But depression, we all have sad thoughts sometimes, about, the possibility of, could be anything, could be a ending relationship or losing a family member, those types of things. So it's not to say that, it's not natural and normal to feel sadness sometimes, but for it to roll into an entire process or have a chemical reaction in the brain that causes undue depression due to a hormone imbalance of oxytocin, serotonin, all these types of things is not natural. But the programs were designed to take a hold of that one incident or that one seed and then expand it into a physical disorder, because that is a real thing, and expand it into a full-on mental disorder, which would then eventually lead to one of the deadly sins or suicide sometimes, and other types of things, and other physical symptoms that are limiting your body. So that's a very real program that happened. But what happens when you replace these things? So when you start to have those thoughts, you've got that friend sometimes, you start to have a sad thought about something. And, he or she is the one that always is like, this too shall pass. You're going to make it sunny. Don't worry about it. Everything is going to be fine. Look what we can do to solve this problem. And we can do that today. There's always that person out there, hopefully, for each one of us. And maybe that's your spouse. Maybe it's a good friend that's close to you. But that's the person that walks in and says, here is the clarity of the situation. This is the reality of the situation. Here it is, bright and clear and shiny for you. Now, they're going to be honest, truthful, transparent, and they're going to provide you with the wisdom to solve the problem. Now, you may not always like how you have to solve the problem, but if you listen to the wisdom, everything will work out. It may be uncomfortable for a while, but it will work out. So in times of sadness and depression, when people are so focused on knowledge, you only need to seek, because it will start pushing that other program against your old thought processes, because these are programmed things into society. The question?
Yeah. So are you saying that innately that should be happening internally within us? Because you mentioned you may have a friend. So the way we were created, the way Source originally wanted this to be, is that we could, even if we have those feelings initially, we internally could see the other side of it. We still go through our emotions and stuff, but It's not so gloom and doom. We don't necessarily need a friend to do it, because that should be happening naturally within us.
Sure. Exactly. And it's okay. Like, they say hindsight is 20/20 as an example. So you number one should be your own friend.
Yeah.
Not to say it's not great to have wonderful friends and family and spouses and kids and all these types of things. But first and foremost, you have to be your own friend. Mm-hmm. You have to be that friend to yourself. Mm-hmm. Now, we all have periods of time where we're really angry about something, or, and then we kind of, as we get older, I would say, we take a step back and we say, okay, I'm not going to open my mouth right now because bad things are going to come out of it, but I'm going to go gain some clarity, wisdom in the situation, and I'll figure out a way to solve this problem. But, you have your few minutes of just letting it all out, right? Yeah. Whether that's a good cry or just anger, and you go to the gym and start punching the punching bag, or whatever it is for you, you let it out. But that process sometimes takes a hold of people's lives, and it is a program, whether it's a physical chemical imbalance that happens in the brain, or it is something that people just can't let go of. Maybe they fought in a war, maybe they saw some terrible things, maybe they lost a loved one or a spouse, or and they just never get past it. It takes a hold of them. It takes a grip. They don't get out of bed, for weeks or months or whatever it is. That's not a natural, normal process, because you love yourself as much as you love that other person or the thing you lost. Mm-hmm. So as your own friend, makes like I'm sounding like everybody's schizophrenic, and you're not.
Me,
As your
myself,
own
and I.
friend, because source is your friend, right? As your own friend, the clarity, the transparency, the hope, and the wisdom will come through.
Mm-hmm.
So every time there's a sense of depression, these things are going to be thrown at you left and right. And it might take a day or two, depending on where you're at in your relationship with source. But think about the clarity of the situation. I can tell you, I don't know how many times I have had, throughout my life, relationships, say, boyfriends and I so didn't want the relationship to end. And I thought, what did I do? Why did it end? And then a year or two goes by and you get some clarity. You're like, oh my, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
And then there's hope for the future, because now you're discovering things that you really want in a partner, a lifelong partner. And then there's the wisdom that's involved too, with how to, where to find those people. You're not going to find them in the same place you found the last person, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of that will be taking place that will actually help you learn, grow, and overcome our PTSD, for lack of a better term, as a society as a whole. And this will actually help us help all the others not so much wake up to what's going on, but it's going to help them help themselves.
Yeah.
To gain a better understanding that you don't need a pill, you need this. Mm-hmm. Okay, other programs out there are guilt, grief, and shame. Guilt, grief, and shame. A lot of this has to do with us not being our own friend too. We're really not very good friends to ourselves in a lot of ways, because you'll feel so guilty for not making it to pick up your kids on time. Maybe you were 10 minutes late and it was raining. You will put the guilt and the shame on yourself before anybody else does, and probably better than anyone else could.
Mm-hmm. There's a term for that. We say we're our own worst critic.
We are.
Yeah.
And we are.
Yeah.
We are. Like I said, we're very bad friends to ourselves. And it's actually in part us and in part programs. Mm-hmm. So we're intended to hate ourselves and to put ourselves through all of this stuff. And I'm not saying it's not okay to feel sadness for the loss of someone or something like that, but you put yourself through so much grief.
Yeah.
You have, and you just can't get past the shame of something you might have done or didn't do. And it could be something small, like, well, gee, I wish I could have given my kid more things for Christmas or, a holiday or something like that. We tend to do this to ourselves. Mm-hmm. But if every single time you're having thoughts and feelings of guilt and shame, what if hope and creativity came into play?
Wow.
So creativity is where you're manifesting, where you're able to bring these things into your life. Your creativity is when you're playing music, if that's your thing, or designing something, if that's your thing, whatever it is that makes you feel the most creative. Cooking sometimes for people. If every time you had a thought of guilt or shame, hope and creativity came into play and started nudging you in the other direction, because if you were your good friend, that's what you would do. You would pull yourself out of those thoughts. You'd forgive yourself if it was your friend on the other side. Don't worry, you were late, Mom, that kind of thing, mm-hmm. Depending if they're teenagers or not. Now that's a whole nother story. No, I'm just kidding.
It truly is.
Yeah, it really does.
They need more of the good stuff. More. Yeah, they need more of that.
Right. Now, other things that happen too, and this has been happening a lot since we were in the boiling pot, chaos and confusion. Mm-hmm. They always say out of chaos comes order. That means everybody falls in line. In times of chaos in people's lives, they tend to look for a savior.
Yeah.
When everything is out of control, the one person that walks into your life and makes it all okay, be that the government, the deep state, the New World Order government, whatever they wanted to do, that is where they come from, because they always create the problem. They'll create the chaos, create the confusion, and then they come in and solve all your problems for you. But if you were your own best friend, you would come in with a balanced and centered, logical plan. You would say, okay, the alarm's going off, this is happening, that's happening, there's a fire in the backyard, whatever it is, everything that's going wow in your life, even if you're just watching it happen within governments, or, seeing banks go down, or, all the confusion, bridges fall, and all kinds of things that's going on around you, you would take a step back, balance yourself out. This is what your friend would tell you. Breathe, take 10 deep breaths, balance yourself out, take a logical approach to what you're seeing that is contributing to the chaos in your life. Watching 9,000 Telegram messages from people that are just talking nonsense sometimes, that you got to just walk away. Mm-hmm. Your friend tells you to walk away. My friends tell me to walk away, and I'm not even talking about my internal friend and myself. I'm talking about my friend told me to just walk away, let it go, and they're right. So every time chaos and confusion starts to come into play, a counterbalancing frequency energy will start pushing in the other direction for a more balanced and centered and logical mental state. See how this is kind of part of the restoration here? Sure. Yeah. Source always has everything in perfect timing. Okay. We have lack and despair. You know how many times I've seen people say, but there's children starving. You remember this when you were a kid? Did you get this one? Oh, yeah. There's children starving in Africa or wherever, You need to finish that dinner. But no, this takes it to a whole new level now that we have internet and a lot of other things. You watch one video on something that's happening in the world where people are living in lack, as an example. And it's probably an amplified video in some cases too. And I bet you those people probably 50% of the time, I'm not going to say all the time, are not actually lacking anything. They're happy. And maybe they're eating this food and you don't like that food, or you consider it inhumane to eat this food. And I'm not talking about bugs and crickets and those things. I'm talking about maize and other things. Mm-hmm. And you may see them as, oh my gosh, they're living in lack and in despair. But all honesty, they've been living that way for thousands of years, and they're still alive, and they're fine, and they're not eating, want chips, like, whatever the heck is in there, all these things you can't pronounce.
Yeah. So true.
So who's to say they're not the healthier ones?
Yeah.
You really don't know. I mean, unless you take into consideration the World Health Organization wants to jab the crap out of everybody in those locations, but predominantly they could have a happier existence than you. You just only have defined in your little own box what unhappiness is. But regardless of that, you see the lack and despair in everything, and more lack and despair will bring you more lack and despair, whether it's from a social media algorithm or because you have that feeling about yourself. How am I going to pay these bills? Oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to make it this month. You live in that place. I'm going to lose my job. Those people? Oh my gosh, I've had those friends. I'm going to lose my job. 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 If I'm 5 minutes late today, I know they're going to fire me. Are they going to fire me? Should I should we check in with the psychic network? Can you check in on that for me? Are they going to fire me? I'm like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
But that is a program too. So your good friend is going to tell you from here on out that you are living in abundance and you are grateful. I mean, I've been in some pretty untenuous situations, and I am eternally grateful for some of the things that I've been granted in those situations. And most people would have looked at me and said, well, you're okay. You don't have this, you don't have that. And I said, oh no, I'm perfectly fine. And I'm grateful. And, my daughter's healthy, my family's okay. And, I've had to move into this place or move out of that place or whatever, but no, everything is great,
Mm-hmm.
And if you have that abundance attitude, you might not attract the things that, you think you need $1,000 for food, for example. And if you live in the U.S. right now after COVID, you're probably right. No, just kidding.
Depending on how big your family is.
Depending on how big your family is, you might be right. But if you're just looking for the food, it will show up. You'll find a way to get it. A thought will come in. Call this party, call this person, and you'll have it. You'll have what you need. But your good friend is going to tell you that if you're just grateful to Source for all the gifts that you're given, it'll come. Mm-hmm. And the more abundant you feel, the more you attract that abundance. Yep. So next, the disconnection from Source. The disconnection from Source is a very real situation. They have done everything they can. The more you try to reach out, the more the disconnect happens and the more mud they will throw in the way. I call it energetic or etherical mud to really block that connection. So an easier connection with the divine is an important part of making all of these other things work. Disconnection from Source could also be you have to go into a building every Sunday or Saturday or whenever you go, and you have to go through that person that's standing up in front of you talking to reach out to Source. There's another method of disconnection. You need to go and you need to talk to this guy in a box with a curtain between the two of you and tell him about all the things you did this week that you didn't feel were right. And then he's going to give you a prescription for upteen Hail Marys so you can walk out the door and feel okay with yourself. Well, your good friend would say you should be okay with yourself. Make it right. If there is a lesson or something that's happened and you need to make that right, I say a mistake is a lesson. So, we all make lessons for ourselves sometimes. And, you got to get up and say, what can I do to fix this? If I've wronged somebody or I missed an appointment or I did whatever it was I did that I felt, your good friend would tell you that it's going to be okay. Maybe that wasn't the right doctor for you to go to. Maybe this wasn't the right, time. Maybe this was not the right time to have a relationship with this person or a friendship. Maybe you need to explore other friendships or whatever it is. But your connection with the divine is key to not getting so caught up sometimes in the judgment that some of those institutions make on you as well. You have, as you kind of wake up, and a lot of you probably know this, you sought Source in one way and maybe you're seeking Source in another way now. And that's okay. Maybe you still take your family to those places because, your spouse or your mom or your dad or your grandparents think that that's what you need to do to be okay. And that's okay. But to feel the judgment from those people, I don't know if you've ever felt that, Sunny, because I can certainly tell you that I have, in my long ago or decades ago when I would go to those places. The amount of judgment going on in there, it's like, wait a minute, who appointed you? Yeah. I haven't been here for 3 weeks, or you get that kind of stuff. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But that's not what Source is all about. So when you're connecting, to the divine, to Source, to the light, to God, however you say that, whatever makes you feel comfortable, it doesn't matter. He doesn't care what you call him at all. He, she, it, whatever you want to say, just do your thing. There's no judgment there. There's no hatred. There's no, you're the wrong color to be at this church. You're the wrong, nationality to be in this place. Whatever it is. You don't speak this language because everybody speaks the same language there. There's another one too. So the reconnection is important. The only other one is war, the warring attitude, the wanting to attack. And not saying that you're not going to have crazy deep state people still trying to do deep state things, until they are no longer and they become not relevant to us. But that warring attitude, the part of you that wants to fight, whether it's, you're getting into a bar fight and all the way up to, you want to yell at this lady at the grocery store or whatever it is. I mean, that's still fighting too. That's still war. It's a fight that comes out in you over some grapes in a store. And then you feel really silly because you took it out on some lady that happened to be trying to pick out some grapes for herself, and she got in your way and you have to go to your, appointment. But in the face of that, you're going to get a heavy dose of peace. Your good friend's going to say, look, they're grapes. Go around and get some oranges. We'll come back in 20 minutes and get the grapes. They're 5 minutes or whatever it is. I don't need to commit road rage and for this person cutting me off because it's not going to uncut you off. You need to realize that. I understand it's very jarring and it's uncomfortable and that kind of thing. But yelling at this person is not going to disrupt their day in any way. It's going to raise your blood pressure. It's going to cause problems for you, and you're not going to get uncut off. So does it really matter?
Yep. And I feel like earlier we ran a field messenger report on some roadways where, a lot of roadways were coming together and they didn't have traffic signs, stop signs, anything like that. It was based on people, paying attention and practicing exactly what you're talking about. Like, when people get road rage, it's because they're being very selfish, right? But if you take a step back and you're like, it's okay, I'm going to get to my destination. Can I let the pedestrian cross? Can I let the train do this? Can I do that? Yeah, it's going to be okay. But I feel like that is putting something in action of exactly what you're talking about right now.
Yeah. And I have driven some serious these people don't truly mean it. Like there's areas I used to live in Arizona, and there are areas of town that are predominantly, should say city, areas of the city that are predominantly retired communities. Retirement, you have to be 50 and over. And these are whole subsectors of the city, like a suburb. And sometimes driving in these places can be very frustrating, as far as road rage is concerned. Yeah. And I used to joke, when you go down there, I'm always prepared that my lane is not my lane. It can become anybody else's lane at any given moment in time.
Yeah.
So I know it sounds crazy. So I used to sing this little song. This lane is your lane. This lane is my lane from California, so because I didn't, I'm like trying to make a joke out of it because it was pretty scary, especially like earlier in the mornings, if you're going out and they're all going out with their, glaucoma glasses on doing the thing. And you're like, you can't see anymore, But, you have compassion for those people and I sing my little song and I'm like, no problem. I'm just going to slow down right now and let you do your thing, But overall, the point is that you need to understand that Source is your best friend. It's always going to be your best friend. Whatever you decide to call it, that is your best friend that you're ever going to have. And he's going to remind you now every time you start going in the wrong direction for yourself, because that friend cares about you that much. And in order to help people make it in a new earth, in a new world, all of these things are important. Now, this just started yesterday, so it's not like going to be, boom, overnight, everybody's going to be the happiest person in the world, and there's going to be no need for Prozac anymore or something like that. But, give it some time. But when those nudges come, listen, and don't hate yourself so much. Don't shame yourself so much. When those nudges come that says, hey, Sonny, you need to walk away right now and you need to go get your nails done. Or whatever it is that makes you happy. You need to go for a walk on the beach. You know what? You deserve it. And, so what? You won't be able to get the extra milkshakes in your, for your kids or whatever, but they don't need milkshakes anyway. So they'll live for one whole week without milkshakes so that you can go get your nails done because you deserve it. You were a good mom. You picked them up from soccer practice. You dropped them off. You got them to school on time. You took care of your husband. You made sure dinner was on the table. You did all these things all week. And so what? 5 minutes for yourself? And you know what? Maybe they'll all complain, but they'll need to get over it because you need to be a good friend to yourself too. So that is the biggest change that's happened in the last 48 hours as far as the transition into the new earth and how to help humanity move forward. So this all took place pretty much over a good portion of the day yesterday. So I'm grateful for that. Yeah. The more other things go away that the deep state was aware of, the more depressed, chaotic, despair, the need to create war, all comes into play.
Do you think they know that this was happening overnight? Did they give any kind of indication, or is this so above their heads they wouldn't even be able to understand these programs?
Well, I'd say for some of the secret space program people, maybe they might be aware of some of these programs in operation. I know that those are the ones that they try to feed. If you pay attention to all the things they do, that is what they try to feed. I think they've been aware, I shouldn't even say that. I'm trying to interject common sense here. I think that there might be some of them who may be somewhat aware that the desired end result isn't happening the way that it used to. Now, as far as for example, operatives selling weapons to make money that cause, for wars and those kind of things, are they aware that this is what happens? Are they aware that people used to get paid $50,000 a kill? For every person that dies in a war or something like that, if you're a general on a certain level? Are they aware? I don't know. Probably not. Nope. Probably not. So I'm going to say some of them are aware that the desired end result is not happening. It's the same thing with creating all this buildup of fear and schools shutting down and everything with this eclipse coming up.
Yeah.
Is all this stuff going to happen? Well, it depends if that's what you're feeding. But your good friend will just say, you know what, sit back, relax, connect with the divine, ask source if hey, is this a possibility? Is this going to happen? Okay, no, nothing will happen. You say everything is going to be okay. So it doesn't matter what all these people say. You say, okay, well, it's going to be okay, but make sure you don't go to this place on this day. This is where everybody's going to go. It might get a little chaotic and a little crazy, so stay away from this area, or, don't drive down that street at this time, or whatever it is. But you'll know because you'll be getting the wisdom. You're going to make logical, clear decisions, balanced and centered decisions. And you will say, okay, well, that makes sense because I've connected with the divine. And then it puts everything else into perspective of what you need to do. And then you have to have faith and trust.
It's so interesting. I was thinking about this yesterday because I was watching a video on YouTube and the video ended and a video about the eclipse and what to expect automatically started playing. And I thought, okay, I'll just kind of watch this. I mean, it was from a weather perspective. It was a guy that was going through, okay, and he was talking specifically about the United States. This is where you're going to get, 100% coverage. This is where you're going to get this. So I'm like, oh, it's kind of interesting because I never really paid attention. and I realized, I'm like, throughout my whole life, I have never really understood the fascination with these eclipses. I'm kind of fascinated with humanity's fascination of eclipses, but
Yeah.
it's never been a thing for even now. I'm like, knowing what we know, I'm like, so the moon is going to cover the sun for a little bit.
I know.
I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but I'm just like, I don't want to go out and see it necessarily. I'm not interested. I don't know.
Everybody go out and practice. If it's a sunny day where you are, what I want you to do is I want to take your thumb and you need to put it over the sun and go eclipse, no eclipse, eclipse, no eclipse.
Look, and I didn't even need a cereal box or special glasses. That's what this guy.
No, just stick your thumb up there and go eclipse, no eclipse.
I don't know. I'm like, am I missing something? Everyone's all excited. I'm like, I could care less, not in a bad way. I mean, it's okay. The planets and the sun, the moon, it's doing something. We're always in flux. We're always moving. What? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'm just like,
I know. Well, it's nice to know if it's going to be dark in the middle of the day.
I guess.
It's nice to know what's happening. That's cool. So I get that, I mean, it's not that hard to let people know a few times. Hey, if it's going to be dark in these areas, just be aware. This is what's happening. Keep it moving.
Yeah, that's kind of what I feel. I mean, are we expecting on our end good stuff to happen on the eclipse? Is there something I'm missing? Like, is Source doing something? Is because we know that they are hoping bad stuff happens, but is good stuff going to happen?
Well, we've had some pretty good stuff happen. I mean, there's a whole mechanism that was behind each side of this. One was uninstalled and another one was installed. So it's, there's a lot of really good stuff that's happened, just like we've had, for example, we had the golden apples of wisdom. We've talked about those. And we've talked about the crystalline flowers of life that are the base root for the essence of everything, that exists. But we also have golden flowers of life, golden energy flowers, golden consciousness flowers, golden essence flowers, golden matter flowers, and then wisdom flowers. And these are like the program behind all of that gets installed. We have frequency flowers and love flowers. And we don't have any more flowers of death, anti-energy, anti-consciousness, anti-essence, anti-matter, or knowledge, I should say, anti-crystalline time, anti-frequency, and no more damned condemnation. So there's a lot of things that take place when I say that there's a mechanism in place for this. There's definitely a lot of, so the timing was right. The movement into the place where we could receive the energy to start these programs up. It's kind of like a starter in your car. If you don't have this spark from your battery, it's not going to turn over,
right.
And then it makes everything else work and the alternator keeps it running and all of these types of things in your car. But you need a little bit of juice to kind of get it over the hump. And we're now in an area where we're starting to see that enough juice in all areas. So in all 9 areas that I just mentioned, so that we can start disconnecting some of this stuff because it's not being fed as much anymore. It's not like a hot wire, so to speak. And now we can insert our own stuff. Okay. And it's all part of the transition into the different age. So everything has its time. And so, sometimes we have to wait for an alignment like the one that happened Sunday night to start installing stuff. So what was meant for our harm is used for our good. Or Sunday night, my time, Monday morning, depending on where you are in the world. So, I would say there's a lot of good things that are going to happen between now and the eclipse is what it seems like to me. All different parts, different facets of restoration are probably going to happen. This is what I know so far. So thought I'd let you know. Yeah. So if you are starting to get these little niggles for you, listen, because that's your best friend talking. You now have your own best friend. So listen. Yeah. I mean, lots of positive things lots of work happens to make all these things happen. It's a co-creation process, like I said.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to the day when we're all finished, and I can't imagine it taking longer than, hopefully. You know what? I shouldn't even say anything because I don't know the answer. My friend tells me what he wants me to know when I need to know it, and that's it.
Yeah.
Here's time to ring your bell. Ring this one. Okay. We've got it.
Yep.
So that's the World Situation Report really for Wednesday.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll have some more good news by Friday. That would be great.
That would be great. Well, we're getting a lot of good news. A lot of bad stuff for the deep state, a lot of good stuff for us. So as long as we stay on that trajectory, speaking of alignment,
that's right.
Let's stay on that path and we'll be good. So
absolutely.
Okay.
Well, have a great Wednesday. We'll see you on Good Friday.
All right. Sounds good. Want to share news from UNN? Help us change the face of social media and use it for good. Connect with us through our online channels. Our social media team creates clips from each newscast you can easily share with the people you care about. That's also where you'll find our UNN